Again she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep and Cain a worker of the ground. Okay, so in verse 1 we've seen that she gave birth to Cain as the oldest son, or eldest, and now Abel. Okay, so yeah, I will later discuss this concept of genealogy. Are they the only children born? Right? We'll get a little bit later to that. The other thing that now in this verse comes out is the fact that Abel was a keeper of sheep and Cain a worker of the ground. Now, this kind of will play a role in what happens after this. The question is, ultimately, is this a bad thing or is it a good thing? Is being a keeper of sheep better than a worker of the land? Okay, so in other words, is it better to have sheep and take care of them, and feed them, etc., 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 use their wool to make clothes, or is it better to plant potatoes or rice in this part of the world? Now the fact of the matter is none is better than the other one. Okay, the first task they were given was not to tend sheep, to look after sheep. Okay, the first task that Adam was given was actually to tend the land. Okay, so you would therefore, God said that he was supposed to tend land, so he was the one to plant the potatoes and the rice and the mangoes and whatever else comes around. Okay, that was his task. Okay, so that was not something negative, and we don't really see a change in that. Yes, the land will make it difficult. Okay, but at the same time, if land is difficult to produce anything, that means it will be difficult to produce the food for the sheep as well. I mean, sheep need something too, okay, grass or whatever they're going to eat. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So both. So yeah, just don't think of that the one is like better than the other one or something like that. And because that might cloud your understanding of why God accepted Abel's offering and not Cain's offering. Right. So what we basically just can see is this is the beginning of keeping flock and agriculture, okay, but different forms of agriculture. Well, the form of agriculture of planting, working the land, that is already from the Garden of Eden, but now we get the extra one, and that's tending the sheep. Now, yes, sure, tending the sheep, being a shepherd. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Right, or Psalm 22, Russian pilot, and Jesus, I am the good shepherd. Okay, so ultimately from this, that concept comes into play later on, right? But don't over symbolize, over spiritualize everything here. One is a shepherd, so, and the other one is a farmer. A little bit more simple. That's what they do, or what they did. Okay, verse 3. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. Verse 4, and Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of the fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering. Verse 5, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry and his face fell. And I don't know. Some older people, they use all kinds of stuff to keep their face up, and then all of a sudden then the money dries out, they don't have stuff to keep the face up, and there goes the face. Or like Rose's might not be a good joke, but like the Russian people also so beautiful, but then suddenly like they say you go to sleep and next to the model, next morning you wake up next to the old babushka, right? Everything kind of changed, right? The face fell. But now in this case, ultimately that's not this what happened. It's just that it shows Cain as being angry at God. Now what led to this? What led to this verse 5 of Cain's face fall? And this is his anger. And what led to his anger? Okay, that is ultimately because God did not accept his offering, but accepted Abel's offering. Now what led to the fact that God did not accept Cain's offering, but accepted Abel's offering? And here, it's not because the one brought blood as an offering, Abel that is, which points towards Christ, right? And the other one brought pumpkins and rice or vegetables or whatever is an offering. And so that is a bad offering and this is a good offering. And that is not what it is about. That is how some people interpret it. They try to see the blood, they again allegorize it, they over spiritualize it, they try to find Christ in absolutely everything. And now Christ you can find here, how? In the fact that they brought an offering. Not in the type of offering, but the offering that's being brought. Okay, so in that sense you can find Christ. Okay, it points towards ultimately the final offering, right? But the kind of offering, right? Because Jesus didn't only offer up his life on the cross, he did more than that, right? He lived a life to God's glory before that, okay? And that is not connected to blood per se, okay? And he rose again, okay? So not everything in the offering that Christ achieved was blood. There was a lot more to his offering, okay? And the other major point is just because the Old Testament clearly states as well that the people could bring an offering. They were supposed to bring an offering of the first fruits. Okay, and in lots of churches even still today, again, Russia, they have the Harvest Festival. In America, first Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving as well, when they bring an offering, okay? So the concept of bringing food, the first fruit, is an Old Testament concept. It's a legal offering that people could bring. So the problem is not the fruit and the blood, or the lack of blood in food, okay? But the problem is the heart of Cain. Now we see in the Old Testament that repeated over and over again. The people thought as long as they bring an offering, all is good. Okay? But God said, no, I don't care about your offerings. Your hearts is what's important. Right? That was God's point in all of it. The heart of people. Okay? And that is what we see here as well. The problem with Cain is his heart was not right. You can imagine like how like it says here in verse 3, he brought a lot of offering of the fruit of the ground. It's a bit like Cain, okay, we need to take an offering for God over there, right? I agree with Abel, we bring an offering there in that spot. Maybe there's some other spot where they did it, kind of, no idea. I think that's not stated. So in other words, that is important. And so you can imagine that Cain was like maybe running late, right? Like, need to get to work, need to get to the place for offering. Abel's time already waiting there for him there. And so he runs quickly to his vegetable patch. Right, there's some pumpkins, there's some, and he's like running there, and he's like, oh, I don't have time, and he starts picking, and there's like taking some, and then it's like, okay, well, whatever, this one looks the best. Yeah, I know it's like thorn and stuff like that, but you know, it kind of looks fine, kind of, right? I know it's not the best, there's one that's bigger, there's one that's more beautiful, but it's far away if I go for that, you know, or I can take that one and I can maybe sell it, or I can give it to my mother, or I can give it to someone. Oh, and they might give me something in return. If I give this one, no, God will really care. Okay, that's a very Christian thing to do. I have $1,000 in my pocket, or 10 lakh in my pocket, or something like that. And I have 100 cents, right? So what do? I know God doesn't really care. I need the money, right? So here, God, there's a few cards. That's a little bit like what happened here. Okay, so it's not because there's no blood involved. It's because his heart was not in it. That's so simple. Okay, and so whatever. So from this we can see he just gave food, not the first fruits. You're supposed to give the first fruits. That's the statement by law, not food. Right? First fruits. In verse 4, Abel brought from the firstborn of his flock and of the fat portion. So Abel did not bring just any kind of vegetables or any fruit. Okay, he didn't bring any little lamb. He didn't just go and say, "Oh, that little lamb will anyhow die, so I'll bring this lamb." Okay, he went and he took the firstborn of the flock, as it was supposed to be done. Okay, now I'm not going now to speak about why the firstborn, because the laws of offerings were only brought in later on. Did they have some other rules already, unknown rules that we don't know about, that's not written in the Word? We don't know, okay? But what we do know is he brought the best, the firstborn, as supposed to. Abel just brought whatever came around. Okay, so just a point of warning to Christians there who thinks, you know what, God doesn't really see, God doesn't really care about what I bring as an offering. Okay, because we have Jesus now, right? We're in the New Testament now, and so we don't need to give a tenth anymore, right? Like an Old Testament. No, that's not true. In the New Testament, you actually need to give not 10%, and actually in Old Testament even as well, people didn't give 10%. 10% is like a, but then they had other times that you as well were supposed to give, so ultimately it came down to 30%, just over 30%. In the New Testament, it's even worse. It's all. You need to give your all to God. So if you have $1 million, okay, now I don't know, not anybody with that kind of money. If you have 100 lakh or something like that, that would be, I don't know, $5,000, somewhere around dollars, US dollars, in your pocket, right? Again, I don't know anybody like that, but you have in the bank account, right? You know, you need to give it all to God. Okay, and with that, I'm not saying now go into the church and hand it all over kind of idea, right? But there's different ways how to give to God. But everything you have belongs to God. If you use that money for studies so that you then can get a job to work to the glory of God, then you're giving it to God. Okay, but now again, don't use this as, oh well, I just use it all on me so I can work. You know if you're working to the glory of God or not. You know, when you're lying to yourself. We love to lie to ourselves, to justify ourselves, just so that, no. Stop being a consumer, stop worshiping different gods. You need to start giving not just any kind of corn, fruit, kind of to God, right? You need to start giving your best, your all to God. That is, Christ gave it for us, Jesus that is, and the same thing for you. So if you want to end up like Cain, yeah, keep on saying, God doesn't really see, God doesn't really care. He actually does. So be on the lookout, right? The way you're building, because we see that from the New Testament, the way you're building on this foundation, yes, by God's grace you will get to heaven, to the new earth, the new heaven and new earth, right? By God's grace, right? You will be with God. But the work you build on this foundation that God gave to you, if you only care about yourself and not about God, if it's about you and God, then it's going to burn. You're building a stubble. It will all be destroyed. Your choice, right? Cain made the choice here. Cain's choice. He killed his brother.